welcome. This is a gentle class with some restorative flavors to it. Restorative yoga is a really gentle take on a kind of longer practice. It's sort of akin or in the same family with yin yoga. These are longer practices where we hold the poses for a while. The difference between the two is that restorative yoga is not really looking for sensation. We're not chasing sensation at all. What we're doing is we're trying to allow layers of tension to release from the body. Now, in an effort to release layers of tension from the body, it's really helpful to have things that help support your body. Now, not everybody has fancy yoga bolsters like this one, but if you have some couch cushions that you can remove from your couch, or you have some throw pillows, little pillows or bigger ones. You can even use the pillows that you would normally use on your bed. They're just a lot squishier, so you may have to roll them up a little bit. And blankets work really great, and so do things like beach towels, larger sized towels. And even smaller towels can be used for certain things. So if you have some props around you, they help your body sink in and let go. You can also do this without the props. You'll just make it work. You can hold onto your body parts or your clothes, and you'll just do your best to relax. I have a strap here. If you have a strap handy, get one. We're going to use that later. I also have a few yoga blocks. Now, to start off with, we're going to start in a pose that reclines, and you have a couple of options for your legs. So, if you have a pillow like this, you can put that underneath your upper back. I'm going to put the smaller bolster under my back so that when I lay down on it, my rib cage kind of lays right on the edge of the bolster, and then my lower back is off of the edge of the bolster. So I'm going to position my ribs and my head on here, and I'm going to let my lower back kind of curve over here in front of that object. Now, some people are more comfortable if the end of the bolster is right up against the sacrum, and you're going to have to figure that out. It depends on the curvature and the shape and the length of your spinal vertebrae. Okay. That being said, I'm also going to have a blanket handy in case I want my head a little bit higher. And I'm going to use a rolled up blanket to make a little bit of a bend in my knees so that I have a little bit less pressure on my hip flexors, on my knees, and on my inner thighs. Okay, so I've got a rolled up blanket, a spare blanket, and I've got a pillow to lay over. And you could roll up a blanket instead of a pillow or use a towel. Okay, so I'm laying down, and then I'm going to position myself as I described before so that I kind of feel like my rib cage is on the bolster, but everything else is off. And then you can do straight legs and put the blanket underneath your knees, or you can do a butterfly shape so that the feet, hold on, I gotta reach this blanket. Okay. So that the feet touch at the soles and the knees drop open, okay? And then in that case, I take the blanket up closer to the edge of the thigh. I don't put it underneath my butt, but you can. I just pull it up right up against the edge, and then it catches this bone as I hold it. I can adjust how much pressure is under there. If I want more support under there, I could put a pillow under there or a block. So I've got a little catch right up under the thighs. And this works really great with a beach towel or something like that as well. So if you happen to have a beach towel. Now, I'm feeling pretty good. My head is actually a little higher because of the sort of relative squishiness of this pillow I have under me. So I'm feeling pretty good about my positioning. I'm now trying to figure out how to get my arms as relaxed as possible. Sometimes it feels better to me to be up higher, like over the head or out like a cactus, or it feels nicer sometimes to be down a little lower. So you're just going to experiment. And once you think you found it, you're going to take a nice big breath. And let go with a really big ah. So that sigh is very helpful. Like really sigh out. You can even make kind of a sing-songy sigh. Ah. So vocalizing triggers a kind of toning in the front portion of the vagus nerve, and that is responsible in many ways for our feelings of well-being and peacefulness and generosity and kindness And so the more we can kind of tone that part of ourselves, the better. Now, once you've relaxed, if you realize, now I need another adjustment, then do the adjustment and do it again. And then try to allow your body to get really heavy. So we're going to stay with this shape for a while, about 5 more minutes. You can, of course, adjust the legs. You can take the legs out straighter, do other things with them along the way if it gets to be spicy in your hips. The main thing is to not be fidgety. So if the props aren't right and you feel fidgety, adjust them until it's right. Be patient with yourself. It may take a while to find right. And then once you get relatively stable, feeling pretty supported, now just breathe. I like to do a few rounds of a really intentionally deep breath. Also let the breath kind of handle itself after a while. And I generally try to mostly keep my mind present with the experience that I'm having. So for me, the windows are open, I can kind of hear a little chirping of birds, and I'm feeling the texture of my mat underneath my, on the backs of my arms, and the kind of weight of my arms kind of gently releasing the muscles in my chest as they come around this bolster. And then the sweet sort of wave sensation of my body breathing. And for you, there could be other sensations. There might be smells or things like that. So you just kind of just enjoy the experience. Allow yourself to notice the details. I'm going to stay for about another minute or so. Take a couple more breaths. And then we're not going to go fast here, but you could, like if your knees are separated, you could bring the knees together. I've kind of gently extended one leg, and now I'm gently extending the other leg. And I'm just going to pause there for a moment, a little bit of movement. I'm just doing a kind of shimmy back and forth with my thigh bones. And then now I'm making just little shapes with my toes, little back and forth, spread them out and squeeze them in kind of moves. And then I'm going to put my feet on the ground so that my knees are up, kind of like I'm going to go into bridge, and this is where we're going to just slide that blanket out from underneath my legs. Now, if you don't have a blanket under your legs, you don't have to do that step. And the second step I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bolster out from underneath my back. And again, if you're just laying on the ground or on the floor, then you do not have to worry about that part. See, you're here. And so now I'm in this position where my feet are resting on the floor. Now, put your feet close enough together that it's like you're going to go into bridge pose, and then we're just going to windshield wiper the legs back and forth. Just kind of drop them left to right. We'll do a couple of rounds with the feet kind of close together. This is an experiment. Hang on with me. Okay, so now when you come back to the center, when you're even, you're going to widen your feet out just a little wider, like what feels to you like you're on the outside edges of your hips. And then drop the legs back and forth. And that one for me is a little more pleasant. I like the wider position, but you might have had a better experience with the first version. Now we're going to do the last version, which for you guys that have a rectangular yoga mat, take your feet out about as wide as that mat. So I'm taking my feet out what I perceive to be wider than my shoulders, and then we're going to windshield wiper back and forth. This is a bigger shape, and when I drop one leg all the way in the middle, it kind of lifts me, it lifts my hip up off the floor because I'm getting my full internal rotation there of my thigh. And again, this one is I'm also a fan of. This one might be your favorite, or it might be your least favorite, or maybe you're neutral on all three options here. Okay, so now we're going to take the knees in towards us, and what you're going to do is decide on a direction. Do you want to go left or do you want to go right? And then once you have put your legs over in that direction, now you have a twist in your spine, right? Now there's a couple of options here. You can just stack one leg on top of the other. If you have a pillow or blanket, you can put that in between or underneath your knees so that the floor is, or the ground, whatever you're laying on, is like supported or padded. I like to put the bolster underneath my bottom leg. I'm going to scooch over a little bit because I'm running out of room. Okay, so I put the bolster or blanket or pillow, something underneath my bottom leg, and then I let the top leg kind of drape over, so that there's like a little crisscross. It's almost an eagle. And then I like my upper back as close to level as possible. And then decide what to do with your arms. So I like to stretch out the arm that is the opposite of the way my legs are going. So right now my legs are over on the right side, and my left arm is reaching out. And it might look different on your screen because there's some mirroring weirdnesses. But in any case, with whatever it works with. And then you can do whatever you like with your other arm. I like to just let that arm be relaxed, and sometimes I even rest it on my torso just below my breastbone and kind of in the little space where my ribs go out on the sides at the bottom, and that it gives me a place to kind of pay attention to my breath. So just kind of feeling the relationship of my breath and how my body changes with my hand resting there. You could also leave that hand on the ground. And sometimes I turn my head the same direction as the legs. Sometimes I leave it right in the middle. Yesterday it felt really good to turn it all the way. And so I'm just trying all three of those positions. And then pick the one that works best for you. Take 2 more big breaths. Now when your exhale finds you, bring your head back to the center, and then kind of bring that top leg back nice and slow. Let the other leg follow it. And then we can go back to these little windshield wipers. Now pick the one you liked the best. Did you like the closer position, the medium position, or the wide position? You can do all three. I'm not going to stop you. You're at your house. I got nothing to say about this, y'all. I make suggestions, but you do what you want. Okay, so my suggestion is that you do it that way. Okay, so here I am, right? And I am ready to do my other side. So I'm going to take my legs over to my left. Yours might be the opposite. And then I'm going to adjust them. Now, I know that one side of my body is a little different than the other. I have more range of motion on my left side than on my right side. So I'm stretching out the right side of my body. So this is going to be a little different. So I have to adjust the pillows a little differently. I'm going to wind up with my arm in a slightly different position. I may or may not turn my head. We're going to figure this out. Oh. And then once you've settled in and, you know, arranged your props, and it might take a couple seconds, don't take all the time you need. Then let yourself let go into the shape. And if you realize, that's not as pleasant as I thought it was, you can change. You can, is it Missy Elliott who says flip it and reverse it? You can flip it and reverse it, y'all. Hopefully I'm getting my old school female rappers in the right order. So again, just kind of coming home to your experience of the breath, of the pose, of your body in space in this moment, your connection to the elements around you, whether it's the sounds or the sensations. And taking a couple more breaths here. When your exhale finds you, just bringing your head back to the middle, bringing your legs back to the middle, nice and slow. Taking the little windshield wiper moves. All right, so what I would recommend is that you put a pillow or something underneath one of your legs so that that leg can really relax. And there's a little bit of softness at your hip. Now, if you don't have that, just stretch your leg up. It's going to be fine. Because we're going to take this other leg and we're going to hug it in a bit. And with it hugged in, we're going to spin the foot in circles. And you don't have to hold on to the leg. You can just, bring it in towards your chest. That'll work fine. And then go the other direction. With the circles in your foot, by the way. Let me finish the whole instruction. And then point and flex your foot so that the ankle joint is moving. Now, we're going to flex the foot back and then extend the leg out as far as it'll go. Feeling that hamstring stretch, and then bend your knee and hug the leg in. Extend the heel out as far as it'll go. It might not go all the way to straight, and then bend the knee and hug the leg in. And then one more time, extend the leg out, and then you're going to let go of it with your hands if you're holding it, and let the leg mostly just hover in the air, and you're going to shake it. So you're going to shake the leg in the air. Now, I sometimes do really big shakes where I move with the big muscles in my thighs. And then sometimes I do littler shakes where I try to kind of get just my foot to go flippy, flappy, flippy, flappy, flippy, flappy. So a little bit of both, kind of shimmy, like I'm making a little circular motion right now, and then I'm doing a little up and down, shaky, shaky, shaky. You might be able to hear the difference in my voice. And so we're going to do these little shakes for about 15 more seconds. It seems like a long time, but it's really not. Keep shaking that leg, however you're shaking it. Okay, so then we're going to let that leg fall down or just drop down to the ground, and you're going to stretch it out if you have room and give that a little shimmy. And then just for a moment, just notice the leg that you just had in the air versus the leg you haven't done yet. And see if there's just a difference in sensation. And you can come up with some adjectives to describe those sensations. So like for me, there's kind of an effervescent or slightly bubbly feeling right at the surface of the skin. The leg feels a little lighter on one side, a little longer than the other. So I'm going to take my pillow, put it underneath that leg that I just did, so that leg stays nice and relaxed. And then I'm going to bring the opposite leg in and give it a hug. And then hugging that leg, I'm going to spin my foot around in some circular shapes. I like to do some really big ones and some really tiny ones, just so that I've got kind of a range of motion with my ankle. A little range of motion and a bigger one. And then go the other direction after a bit. And then after a bit, point and flex your foot. And again, you could kind of squish the toes and spread them apart. You can turn the ankle a little bit as you're flexing it back. A couple more of those. And then we're going to flex the foot back and then extend the leg. And I don't know how far it's going to go. Will it go all the way to straight? Who knows? You and your hamstrings have to work that out. Bend your knee, hug your leg in. And then extend the leg out, kind of reaching up through your heel, spreading your toes out if you like, and then bend the knee and hug the leg in. And then we're going to extend the leg out. Oh, because it's nice, y'all. Oh, okay, so we're going to let it go. And you're going to put that leg just right over your hip, just so it has a good balance and your pelvis rests. And we're going to shake it. And again, you could do really big shakes, kind of rotational shakes, or you could do little tremor shakes. I find that my right foot is a little easier at being flippy-flappy than my left foot, which I find fascinating. So my new project is to get my left foot to be flippy-floppy. So, me and the shaking, we're having some fun here, trying to be flippy-floppy. But you can do kind of little rotational movements. That feels really good in my hip. I like the way that feels. And we got about 20 more seconds, yogis. We're almost there. You could take some time to be vocal, which again will trigger your vagus nerve. All right, drop that leg. I don't know if you guys are joining me with this kind of craziness at your house, but maybe. All right, so give it a little jiggle. And then extend both your legs out and then just notice. Has the sensation in the leg you did first shifted? Is there now a more evenness, or is there still some asymmetry, or is it exactly the same as it was before? It's just really noticing the details of your experience. And for some of us, there aren't any details. So we're going to take the hands, we're going to take or arms, we're going to take the right arm just straight up, and do some little circles with your wrists. You can keep the elbow a little soft and go the other direction with your wrist circles. And then we're going to spread out the fingers as wide apart as they'll go. Concentrate on these 3 littler fingers, pinky, ring finger, middle finger, more than you do the thumb and the index finger. So like trying to get the back, that littler part of the hand to spread out and then curl in. Like some of each, right? But just if you're focus on those smaller fingers making more space. And then curl your fist in. And then we're going to do the same thing with the arm that we did to the leg. So we're going to shake the arm. And it's easier for me to make my fingers be flippy-flappy. So that's fun. And again, I do some rotational shakes, so that I really get kind of the upper arm bone moving around in the socket of the shoulder. And then I do more of kind of a shimmy shake that gets my wrist and fingers more flipping around. All right, we're almost there, 30 seconds. And again, you could do like slower shakes. They don't have to all be fast. Just shake. I find it easier to shake my arms than my legs. All right, so take a big breath and then exhale and release the arm to the ground. And again, we're going to do this little experiment. Like, are there differences between the arm you just did and the arm you haven't done yet? I will suggest to you, it feels like the shoulder on that side is, even if I tuck my shoulder blades in and I can feel that they're level, that shoulder feels like it's farther away from my ear than on the other side, for me. And again, there's this kind of light effervescent feeling, like bubbles, like champagne bubbles in my skin. I like that feeling. You may not feel that. I could be making this stuff up. All right, so I got my opposite arm in the air, and now I'm gonna just circle the wrists so that I'm getting some circles in one direction, and I'm trying to get as full a range of motion as possible. And a lot of us may have been using our devices a lot more than we're used to, and when the thumbs curl forward, it puts a lot of pressure on some tendons that live right here in the wrist. And so as much as you can, let the wrist kind of fall towards you while your arm is in the air, just to release some of the pressure on those little tendons. Okay, so then we're going to spread the fingers out, and again, concentrating on these 3 smaller fingers, and then curl the fist in. And then stretch the finger out and try to bring that thumb around behind as best you can. It will probably feel interesting. And curl it in. And then spread the fingers out. Get all the fingers kind of stretching out. Oh, good. Curl it in. One more time, giving the fingers some space. Okay, and then curl your fist in, and then you're going to just shake that arm. And again, like shake from up at the top part. And shake the bottom part and let the fingers get kind of flippy floppy, and you might even do like a shake with your hand in a different position, so the fingers don't have to point straight up. It could be more of a sideways shake. Ooh, we're almost there. We got 15 seconds. Keep shaking, keep shaking. We're almost there. All right, we're going to take a nice big breath, and then we're going to let that arm fall down, and then position the 2 arms kind of in relative anatomical position, and just see if there's a difference in the way the shoulder feels or the arm when you compare the 2 together. Is there more symmetry or less, or the same? There's no right answers, yogis. It's just noticing what is. That's the way we work. All right, so I'm doing this little windshield wipery things. We're going to come to a seated position. So before I do that, I'm giving myself a little knees in, huggy love. Now I'm going to do this nice and slow. I'm going to roll to my side. I'm going to put something under my head. I'm going to hang out here for a moment. And then I'm going to sit up. Some of you might be the kind of folks that love to rock yourself up, and if that's the case, don't let me stop you. Rock yourself right on up. It's fun. Now, kind of leaning in a more restorative bent, so hence the not rocking. But I'm not judging. You do your thing. All right. So now I'm neatening up my area here. So kind of putting my props around me in a slightly more organized way. So there's a yoga practice quality. So theoretically, if we practice yoga long enough, some of these kind of natural sort of things will start to happen. One of those things is called saucha, which is cleanliness, which is generally about keeping the inner body clean. Like, we'll be more inclined to be attracted to foods that are good for us, for example. And then keeping our body clean, you might be more inclined to shower. Although I've never not been inclined to shower personally. Although there might have been a time when I was young, I don't know. But in any case, not that I remember. But also just kind of keeping things a little more neat and organized. And it does help your mind relax. And so if you're inclined to kind of, make things a little neater around you, do that. Now, that being said, we're going to take just a simple cross-legged seating position. If this position is not a comfortable one for you, you can take your blankets or whatever you just folded up neatly and put those underneath your butt. And the way that you want to sit on them is you want to sit on them so that your butt is right at the edge, okay? So there's more blanket behind you than under you. So the blanket, rather than go under your thighs, goes just under the pelvis. And that'll kind of lift you and tilt you a little bit forward so that it's a little easier to sit cross-legged. And if it's still not easy, sit in whatever way is appropriate for you, including up on a bunch of pillows or even in a chair. Okay, so we're going to do these little cat-cow shapes in a seated position. We're going to start just back and forth. So we're going to round, you're going to let your pelvis tilt backwards so the navel kind of moves inward towards the body. And then we're going to tilt the pelvis forward so the heart kind of comes forward, right? So we get those two shapes, kind of rounded in the back, and then heart moving forward. And we'll just go back and forth a few times this way. And I like to kind of hold on to the tops of my knees. I let the legs lift a little bit to make that roundy shape a little bit more roundy, so I can really roll onto the pelvis. Okay, so now we're going to start with kind of a circular motion. So my heart is forward and I'm leaning forward with my pelvis. Now I'm going to move to the side, like the ribs are going to go to the right. Then I'm going to curl around to the back, so now my pelvis is tilting the other way. And then I'm going to move my ribs over to the left, and then my heart shoots forward again. Okay, so we've just added these sideways motions along with the two cat shapes to make this Sufi roll happen. And you can call it what you want. That's the first word I heard associated with this. And it does make me think of sushi because it's awfully close. So if you want to think of it in a different way, you can. But in any case, once we're going to do it one more time, go in the direction we're going. So once we get back to the point where the heart is forward, then you're going to pause there. And we're going to go the other direction. So we're going to start going to the left, for example. Okay? So over to the back, over to the right, to the front, to the left, to the back, to the right, to the front. So we're just making a big sort of, it's almost like you're stirring a pot with your ribs. Maybe that sensation. Two more of those. Sufi rolls. And again, once your heart gets forward, we're going to pause there and just let ourselves float up. Lean back a little bit and adjust your feet. So we're going to take the legs into a V shape, but your V can be closer together or wider apart. This is going to be largely dependent on what happens to your hips when your legs go wide. For some of us, keeping the legs just shoulder or hips distance apart is going to be a better V shape than if the legs are way out wide, right on? So you're just going to kind of experience like what position gives you the best opportunity to sort of be able to move your pelvis backwards and forwards, and then take that shape, okay? So some people have no restriction here. Some of us have some bone shape restrictions. Now, that also, you might be more comfortable if you put some props underneath you, whether it's props under your hips, or like I like to take my legs out in a V but put a blanket under my knees. So I've got just a little bit of support for the back of my knee. Okay, so now we're going to lean into this a little bit and just adjust the pelvis so that it feels like you're up on the very tippy tips of your sit bones. The sit bones are the bottom part of the pelvis. They're technically called ischial tuberosities because they are part of the ischium, and they are at the very end, hence they are a tuberosity. And my guess is because they sort of resemble tubers, you know, like potatoes. That there is that root word is similar. In any case, Latin. So we're going to take ourselves and just kind of fold down the center. So you might fold a lot down the center, you might fold a little down the center. And then you have the choice of just pausing there, or if you happen to have a mountain of yoga props nearby, you can stack up your mountain of props and create sort of a little headrest that you can rest yourself on, because we're gonna stay a little while. Okay, so whatever version of this pose works best for you, whether your legs are closer together or wider apart. And we're gonna let the back get a kind of round. And if you don't have any props, don't worry about it. You just hang out there. And if your neck gets a little tedious, come out and give yourself a little massage in your neck, right? You can massage really gently up into these little ridges on the back of the skull. That feels really good, actually. Oh. And you can release tension from the neck that way. I've also used the couch and put my hands up on the couch. If your legs will fit under it, some couches are higher than others. dining room chair, whatever you got handy. And most importantly, once you sort of get yourself settled with whatever props you're going to use, that you're breathing, and again, kind of just coming home to your experience. One of my favorite things about a forward bend is how the breath kind of plays in the back. I can feel my breath. Normally I feel my breath as a front body experience, right? My belly, my chest, my ribs. But with a forward bend, it becomes a back body experience, and I really experience the breath in these kind of lower back muscles. And sometimes those are places where I carry a little stress and a little tension, so it feels really nice to allow the breath to almost massage that tension out of my back. So we're going to stay for a couple more minutes. You're doing great, yogis. And again, like sometimes your mind will wander and you'll start to think of other things. And when you do, just remember to come back. Like every time you think about it, oh yeah, I'm coming back to an awareness of my breath and the pose and the being. Just, you know, from time to time, like try to put more of that in than of the other stuff your brain does. I've got 30 seconds left here, y'all. So we're going to take a big breath. And then let go with a big Now inhale your way up. So inhaling, keep inhaling, keep inhaling, keep coming up, keep inhaling, keep coming up until you're all the way at the top. And then lean back, bend your knees. And then you can give yourself a little movement in your legs. And your back will probably still feel like it's leaning into that original shape. And so give your back a little moment to kind of readjust, but you can do these little teeny tiny cat-cowies, twisty, side-to-side kind of movements with your ribs. Don't go too extreme, because we're trying to let the fluid in the spine kind of move back into its normal place, but it helps to have that little bit of pulsation. Ooh, right. Now, yogis, we're going to do one more thing while we're seated, and that's we're going to do a side bend. So we're going to keep one leg out straight, but the other leg is going to be bent. And more or less, I'm on a bit of a diagonal, right? So I've sort of turned myself so that I feel like I'm turning towards my bent knee, and my other leg is kind of out here to the side. Now, you can, if you care to, actually change the whole arrangement of the legs here. So instead of having the foot in front, as I have it here, this is more like the Janushirasana or head to knee pose shape, where the foot kind of touches in towards this inner thigh. You can do this shape, or you can do the gate pose shape. There's a couple of different variations on the gate, but it's just you bring the leg around behind you, okay? And so the foot comes around behind the buttock. And this one is a nice shape, and I do enjoy it. It's a little bit more challenging for the range of motion in the hip. So for some people, this one's right out, and it's going to cause knee trouble. And so you can just stay with the original version. Or if you want to do that version, it changes things around a little bit. And it is a difference, right? So it gives you a different pose. Okay, so if you're in the gate pose, you're automatically turned the right direction because the pelvis just does that. If you're in this shape that I'm in right now, which is this more Janushirasana flavored shape, we're going to turn a little bit towards that bent knee, and then we're going to side bend over. Now, whether you extend your arm up over your ear is entirely up to you, okay? I like it some of the time, and then sometimes if I've got a little shoulder thing going on, or I've got some tension in my neck, it doesn't feel as great. So what I would suggest is you could try putting it behind your back, or you can just put your hand kind of in the hip crease and just allow the arm bone to find a position that feels like it's nice. Now for me, this feels really nice to reach up over my ear, and I'm not necessarily trying to go for my foot, although you can do that. I'm mostly just trying to create a gentle sideways bend in my spine, and then this kind of lengthening through the side waist and through the arm and the armpit. Ooh. We're going to take one more big breath. And then bringing ourselves up, we're going to release that arm, change the legs a little bit, so just kind of give the legs a little motion. I'm also turning my head from one side to the other just to release any tension from my neck. And then I'm going to do the opposite side. So I'm not quite ready to go there with my spine yet, but by the time I get myself organized, I probably will be. So I'm kind of adjusting my props, turning myself a little more on the diagonal. And then I take a moment to check in with my spine. Yep, I think we're good. So it takes me about 30 to 40 seconds generally for all the fluid to kind of go back where it belongs and my spine to be ready to do a different shape. I don't like to twist one way and then immediately twist another way. I like to give it a little bit of a moment, and the same with the side bending, because the fluid moves around in the discs, and I like to give it a chance to move back into its kind of more neutral position before changing it up again. And that's just a matter of preference. There's nothing necessarily wrong. You're not going to necessarily damage your body by doing it the other way. It just feels clunky and sort of torquey to me to do it that way, so I prefer to give myself that little bit of time. And again, so we're just side bending here for about another 3 breaths. And you're feeling out like, how far should I reach? Oh, because sometimes it feels really nice to reach, and sometimes it doesn't. You just have to trust your own instincts on these things. Oh, and last breath. And then you're going to bring yourself back. Oh, nice big inhale. And once you get back, give everything a little rinse. Change the legs. Oh, that feels nice, y'all. Oh, yogis. That is some good stuff, I'm telling you. Now, we're going to do a little bit of a back bend. And I'm going to give you a couple options because not everybody has props. And so if you have a bunch of props around you, you'll have a few more options. And if you don't have as many props, you'll choose one of the other options. So first option is a sphinx. And this one is you don't even have to have a prop. You just got to have you. And so you just got to roll onto your belly. And you're going to prop yourself up. Now, there's 3 layers to the sphinx. And I call them different things. But they can all be the same thing, just 3 different heights. So if you bring your arms up front and bring the elbows in so they're about shoulder distance or a little less apart, and then cross your forearms one over the other, you can rest your forehead or your chin on your crossed forearms. And this I call crocodile because it feels like you're laying under the water and the only thing sticking up out of the water are your eyeballs, right? You're kind of ready, but mostly you're a log. So, crocodile. And then, or alligator, whichever one you prefer. And then the second option is the Sphinx, which looks more like the Sphinx, where we come up onto the elbows, so your front paws are out, right? Like that Sphinx in Egypt. You don't have to have your paws out, though. You can move your paws wherever you want. But elbow a little bit forward of the shoulder, slightly in, generally is the best place for me. You have to experiment on your own. And then the third possibility is to prop up on your hands, and that one might be better for you. Now, that's the first camp. Second camp is basically this pose upside down, okay? And this is called mountain stream pose, because we're going to hold this for a little bit. So this is why you might want to pick one or the other. So you take a blanket and roll it up, and that becomes a rock in the river that's going to go under your upper back. And then you take some pillows or a pillow and put it underneath your legs, and that's your second rock. And then you are the water in the river, right? So we're gonna roll over these rocks, y'all. So I put my back on the blanket, what I call the bra strap zone, because that makes the most sense to me. It's like, oh, right there where that strap is? Yes, that's where it goes. But for those of you who don't live in that world, you can line this thing up. It's just about the bottom of your rib cage, between the bottom of your rib cage and the bottom of your shoulder blade. So it's just in that area. If you were to take your breastbone, right there at the very bottom of your breastbone, that little tippy tip point, if you drew a line straight down, it would intersect this blanket. Okay, so it goes right in that area. And then the other one, you just pull in close to your hips or put under your knees. And so we're basically being held in a little baby crocodile, little baby cobra shape. And I find this one pleasant, and I like it. I like the Sphinx. They're both great poses. Just pick the one that's right for you given the circumstances. And we're going to stay here for about 5 or 6 minutes. Sometimes for me, like the reason I gave you the 3 different layers of the Sphinx is because initially it might feel really great to be propped up on your elbows, and then that gets a little tedious in your low back. So you can drop down into the crocodile or push up into your seal for a bit, but then go back to the Sphinx, that kind of idea. With this little mountain stream pose, we're letting the props do all the work, and we're just draping ourselves over this into the back bend and hanging out. Yogis. So again, like when you catch your mind thinking about stuff, right? The nature of the mind is to think thoughts. That's what it's there for. But I have discovered that many times the thoughts that go on inside my brain are basically loops and patterns and things that it thinks of all the time. I spent quite a bit of time mapping out, like, when I caught myself thinking, what was I thinking about, and it was embarrassingly small number of things that I think about. So it's almost like a soap opera, you know, those TV shows where they have the same plots that just kind of go over and over again. It's basically the same thing that goes on inside my brain. But that's its function. And sometimes I'll get caught up in the storylines, or I'll get caught up in the little fantasy part of it, and so, or the memories, or whatever it might be, the list making, and I'll just kind of pull myself back. And so when I remember to do it, or I catch myself doing it, I just come back to presence. Just come back to feeling my body, noticing the breath, noticing the world around me. And so you don't have to stay razor focused on your breath, although there are benefits to that kind of attention. But more, if we can spend more time in the present moment instead of inside the little inner world of our head, that's what we're aiming for with mindfulness, is that we spend more time being really present with the breath, with the pose, with our body, and the moment. And of course, this assumes that the moment that we're in is relatively safe. Because if the moment that we're in is not safe, then action has to be taken. If the moment that we're in, like, we're not in any physical danger, and there's not a mental danger present, or emotional danger, then we can relax into the moment. And that is the goal of this yoga practice, is to relax into the moment. And let go of some of the layers of tension that we have, the layers of stress. So we've got 1 minute left here, yogis. Back home to your breath. I'm going to take 2 more big ones. And then when you exhale, we're going to come out of our pose. Now, if you're in the Sphinx or the Sphinx variations, you might want to bend your knees and wave your legs around a little bit. You might want to go back to a child's pose and give the child's pose a little wobble. If you're doing the river brook pose or river mountain stream pose, then what you might do is take the bolster or the blanket or whatever you've got out from under your legs, and then take the one out from under your upper back. And then, take a moment, kind of curl your knees in, or do some little circles, just kind of rocking out on your back. And the folks that were doing the Sphinx, you can join us on your back and rock out on your back. It feels pretty great. Nobody's stopping you from that. Just do the thing that you think is going to be the nicest sort of undo, or the nicest kind of release from that shape. Now, we're going to do 2 different things that might be a little bit new to you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do some tapping. And this is all kind of oriented in our upper body. And we're going to do one side with one hand, and then we'll do the other side with the other hand. So to do that, you just have to position yourself in a way that's supported. So I take my feet slightly wider than I would for bridge, and I just let my knees kind of drop in. You can also do this seated if it's better for you to do it that way. Now, what you're going to do is on the pinky finger edge of your hand, you're going to tap that part of your hand first. And just pick a hand to start tapping with. And then the hand that you're doing the actual tapping, that hand, we're going to do that hand the whole way. And then we'll switch and do the other side. Okay, so I'm just, right now my left fingertips are tapping the pinky side of my right hand. And I'm down on the hand side. So from the edge of my pinky down to my wrist bones. There's a bunch of little marma points in there, and that's what we're doing. Okay? So I'm just stimulating those marma points. Now I'm going to take the same hand and I'm going to go to the top of my eyebrows, and I'm going to start over at the right edge and just go all the way across to the left edge. And I'm just tapping right above my eyebrow. There are also some, in addition to marma points and potentially acupuncture points, there are also some lymphatic points here. So I'm tapping with the fat part of my finger, not my nails, right? I'm not trying to make little nail marks on my head. The softer part of the finger. Okay, so now we're going to go around the eye over by the temple, and you can go all the way to the edge of your ear and up to the edge of the skull and around to the edge of your cheekbone. But in that temple area, I'm using my left hand, so my left eye is now what I'm working with, and I'll do the other side later. And then you go under your left eye. Just do the left one or right, whatever. If it's your right hand, it's your right eye, right? So just whatever hand, same eye. And just go under the eye, right on that bone, all the way around under your eye. And now you're going to go under your nose on your top lip and just tap, tap, tap. Tap your top lip. And then we're going to go under the lip on the chin. So from the tip of the chin up to the bottom of the lip and across the surface. And then we're going to tap the collarbone. And now it's easier for me to tap my right collarbone with my left hand. So I'm going to switch over to my right side. Again, we're going to do both sides, so don't worry. So you're going to tap all along the collarbone. And sometimes there's some sensitivity there. So just, being mindful of how hard you tap. And then we're going to tap under the armpit. And if you can do it, some of your rib cage in that same area. Okay, so get to the ribs and the armpit. And then we're going to come to the top of the head, and you're just going to tap the top of your head. Okay, so now let that left arm go and just relax for a moment. And feel. Or whatever arm it was, right? I forgot. Some of you might be doing your other hand. All right, so just feel what you're feeling. Now, there's an emotional part of this too, a little kind of mental part of this. So what we're going to do for the second half of our tapping is we're going to kind of say to ourselves as we're tapping, I have all of the resources that I need to weather the current situation in my life, or I am resilient, or words that imply that while you're in a challenging period of your life, or in life in general, that you are resilient and strong. Okay, so you can use whatever words come to you. So now we're going to do the other side. So you're going to tap the side of your hand. So right now my right fingertips are tapping the left side of my hand, from my pinky finger down to where my wrist is, just all along that edge. And again, just in your mind saying things to yourself about strong resilience, that you have a right to any feelings that you have. Just, validate your own experience. How's that? So now we're going to move to the eyebrow, and you're going to go from the left eyebrow or over to the right, or vice versa. Just tap across the top of your eyebrows. And again, you might be really light tapping here. Doesn't have to be forceful. And then we're going to go to the temple and just tap all around the temple. And I noticed there's some more sensitivity on my right side than there was on my left side, so that's interesting. So just tapping up to the edge of the eye, around where the temple lives, over to the edge of the ear, down to the edge of the cheekbone. And then we're going to go gently under the eye, right on the bone. And then under the nose, all across the upper part of the jaw. You know, the upper lip. And then under the lips, so that you're on the bottom between your chin and your lip, lower lip. And then we're going to go to the collarbone, and again, I go across to the opposite collarbone, so I'm going to tap my left collarbone with my right hand here, because it's just a little easier. I have a little bigger range of motion. So just tap your collarbone all along the edge, and maybe even like around the front of the arm where the collarbone meets the arm bone. And then we're going to go up under the arm. So there's this area on the forward side of your underarm where your pecs kind of attach. That's what we're after. There's marma points in that area for breast health and also for breathing. And then we're going to go over to the ribs, if you can, just kind of under that same area. And then to the top of your head. Okay, so then allow yourself to relax. And just notice, right? Maybe this does nothing for you, but we've just stimulated all of these marma points in the upper body that are responsible for breathing, the heart, for the feeling of well-being, relaxation, a kind of reduction in anxiety. All of these points that we've just stimulated are points that help with those kinds of functions. And so if this was something that kind of worked for you, it's pretty easy to do. You can try it even in the middle of your workday while you're at your desk. Now, the second part of this that we're going to do is a little different take on the leg stretches that you might be familiar with the strap. So if you have a strap, get it. And we're going to do this in what's called the Sleeping Buddha, or sometimes I've heard this pose called Vishnu's couch. So that's not the words that are used, it's actually the name of the guy. Vishnu, if you don't know who Vishnu is one of the Hindu gods, and he's the god of the sustaining force, right? So Shiva's destruction, Vishnu sustaining, Brahma new creation. So you create something, you sustain it, and then it's destroyed and new things grow, right? That's the cycle of nature. So Vishnu is responsible for that cycle of nature that feels like a sustaining force. So in any case, there's images of him laying on a couch on a ocean, right? So he's got a float, like a pool float, but his pool float is made of a giant snake with the multiple heads, which is metaphoric, and I'll talk about that another time, hopefully. But in any case, so you're laying on your side, and you've got your hips and your shoulders kind of stacked on top of each other, and then we're going to take this top leg and bring it up, and you're either going to hold onto your big toe with your peace sign fingers, or this is where the strap comes in handy. You put the strap around your foot, and then you hold onto the strap, okay? So you just reach up there, make a loop with your strap if that's helpful, so you have something to hold onto. Now, the reason this is fun, and we're doing it this way today, is to create a little extra core work. So when I lay on my side, my inclination is to fall backward, right? Or to fall onto my back. So we're going to try to hold ourselves steady, laying on our side, and also kind of pressing the foot into the strap and drawing the leg up. So we get a little stretch through the hamstrings or the side inner thigh, depending on how you're positioned. And we'll switch it up in a second, but for now we're going to do it this way so we have this little extra bit of core work with our side work here. So just holding ourselves steady is the kind of core work that our body is really designed for. The muscles of the abdominal region are meant to mostly stabilize the body so that we can move from place to place. They have some function in movement of the spine, but mostly they're stabilizers. And when we use them that way, we are functionally strong, right? So we strengthen our abdominals in a way that don't create dysfunction, but instead create harmony so that we have a little less back pain and a little less trouble moving around in the world, okay? So we're using the abdominal muscles here. It feels like a really gentle thing. Doesn't feel like we're using our abs at all, but we're using them the way they're intended to be used, which is to stabilize the body. So the pelvis and the spine stay in a stable relationship to each other. Now that I've lectured you on science, we're going to take 2 more breaths. One more. And then we're going to switch just a bit. So I'm going to let go of the strap a little bit, and we're going to lay back down on our back. And then I'm going to come back up here and get hold of the strap again. Again, you could have held onto your big toe that whole time if you wanted to. And now we're going to go for just the back of the thigh. So this is now gets us to our familiar territory of stretching out our hamstrings. If you need more room, make your strap a little longer, or hold onto your pants, or whatever you need to do. So now we're in more familiar territory. And there's very little core work involved. I'm going to stay here for about 30 more seconds. All right, so we're going to take 2 more breaths here. And then we're going to release the foot. You can take your strap off if you're using that. Give your leg a little shimmy. I like to drop my foot onto the ground, do little windshield wipers. Ooh, that feels nice. All right, so we're going to do the other side. Now I'm going to spin around 180 degrees so that you can see what I'm up to. You might just roll over onto the other side. Okay, so first things first, we got to establish the sleeping Buddha position and or Vishnu on his couch position. It's fascinating to me that they're both similarly aligned. So my head is resting on my arm, my hips are on top of my hips, shoulders on top of shoulders. Well, shoulder on top of shoulder. All of y'all's shoulders on top of all y'all's shoulders. Okay, so then we're going to take this leg up, and I'm going to hold on to it with the strap because it's a little bit easier than holding on to my big toe. And again, then I'm going to realign myself, right? So again, as soon as I get hold of my leg, the tendency is for my hip to fall back. So I am going to realign myself so I feel the wobbliness of having to sustain that position. And so I'm hugging in a little bit through the sides of my waist to trigger my deep abdominals, the transverse abdominals, to help support and sustain me in this shape. It's sneaky core work. You don't even have to do a single crunch. It's the best kind of core work there is, y'all. Oh, and we're getting a leg stretch. So what's not to love, I ask? It's a win-win, really. So we've got about 30 seconds left here. Oh. Take a big breath. And then we're going to kind of gently release this down into the hamstring stretch. So we'll just roll onto our back, maybe still holding the strap. Maybe still holding your big toe. Maybe readjusting on either of those two things. And then we'll pause here. right, 2 breaths left, yogis. All right, nice big inhale. And then we're gonna bend that knee, release it from the strap, give yourself some love. And yogis, we're gonna do our favorite thing. We're gonna get ready for Shavasana. Now, you might want to build up a giant mound of delightful props. A blanket under your head, a blanket over your body, a pillow under your legs, or 2. So you can build as big a nest as you want. So you're gonna build a nest, and I am gonna get all of the singing bowls out. You've settled yourselves in. And so take a nice deep breath and a big deep sigh. so gently. Just bring your awareness back to your breath. And then as you're ready, take a breath so deep you can feel it all the way to your toes. And let it go with a sigh. And then you can start just a sweet little gentle movement at the tips of the fingers and toes. And then stretch out through your hands and feet and give your wrists and ankles a little movement. And you can start to stretch and move and wiggle about. When it seems like a really good idea, you can curl up into a ball, give yourself a hug and a back massage for the road. And then when you're ready, you can roll over to one side and take a few moments there. Or bring yourself up to a seated position in the way that seems right to you. Thank you for joining me for a little Sunday morning relaxing, gentle, sweet yoga practice. Hopefully you enjoyed the little singing bowl concert at the end. So take a big breath together. Nice big inhale. A big deep sigh. Namaste, beautiful yogis. Thank you so much.